Okay, this video is part 2 of chapter 11 in Dr. Stevens' Intro to Greek Grammar textbook. And this chapter is on adverbs and more. And if you remember from the previous video, I said that I was going to break this chapter up into a couple of parts. I decided to do it into 3 parts just to help you kind of work your way through the chapter in smaller chunks. I recognize as a intro level student, sometimes it can be overwhelming seeing all this stuff. Up to this point, most of the chapters have been kind of logical following through. You were introduced to the alphabet, then you were introduced to accents, and then you got into the verb system, the present, active, middle passive tense. Then you got into nouns and adjectives, which all use the same endings and articles, and you went through the declensions. Each little chapter was kind of like a little unit, and it kind of related one to another as you built. This one's this chapter can look like a little bit of a curveball. It's what the title talks about, adverbs and more. The and more is Stevens just kind of puts a bunch of things you got to know about the Greek language, kind of clumps them all together. Not exactly all related, really logically, easily relatable in our minds logically, but Stevens kind of put them all together as this chapter is a catch-all for some things you need to know about Greek. And so I thought it'd be easier just to break them up. So in part 1, we learned about how the Greek language does comparative. How does it communicate comparison? And there were several ways that happens. In this video, in part 2, you're going to learn the Greek number system. Okay, so everything you need to know about the Greek number system, Koine Greek number system, you'll learn on page 157 to 159. Yeah, and then in part 3, I'll go over clause conjunction. So let's talk about the Greek the Greek number system. So there are 3 aspects or 3 types of numbers, you might say, to the Greek number system, and the same thing in English, and you'll see how they relate in a second. The first one is the cardinal number system. This is how they count. Cardinals are counting numbers, and that's on page 157, 158. Then the second one you'll see at the bottom of 158 in bold. These are the ordinal numbers. These are ordering. We call them ordinal numbers because they're ordering numbers. This is first, second, third, things like that. And then finally, you'll see on page 159, you have a handful of adverbials, once, twice, and thrice, or in English we say 3 times, 4 times. Okay, so let's deal with cardinal numbers first. Now in English, when we write, if we want to write numbers, we have a couple of different ways. We can write out the word like 1, or we can write that cardinal number like that Arabic number like that. And we can count that way. But in Greek, they really don't have this kind of a thing going on. What they have is they have written words for each of those numbers, and they write them out. That's how they count. So cardinal numbers are all your counting numbers. And what he's going to give you in table 11.2 in the bottom of page 157 are your cardinal numbers. Now this part's a little weird. And so you just kind of have to know this part about it. And I honestly, I've never even researched why it is this way, so I've never chased it down. But when we talk about cardinal numbers in the Greek, that's and we start counting 1 through, say, 10, you see in table 11.2, numbers 1 through 4 are inflected, which means they're going to have ending changes, conjugation changes, like your nouns and verbs and things like that. But when you get to cardinal numbers 5 and up, 5 through 9, there's no more conjugation on that on those cardinal numbers 5 through 9, and he tells you that. I think on the bottom of page 157. I want to make sure I'm on the right page here. Now, what are the endings? You may be saying, "Oh no, a whole new set of endings to learn." Well, good news is no new endings to learn. These numbers 1 through 4, cardinal numbers, they use the same endings as your first, second declension nouns. It's mixed, but you've seen this before, so nothing brand new. And so on the bottom of page, on that table 11.2, let me help you understand that. You'll get across the top, let me just go with the number 1. So it says 1 like that, and then has a line for masculine, neuter, and then feminine. It's the order it does it. And then he's going to give you the ordinal numbers. For example, for 1, I didn't write the accents for the sake of time, but ace, and mia. I'll go ahead and do them. But these, just to help you understand what's going on here, he's given them to you in the same case chart you're used to seeing with nouns and adjectives. This is the nominative form. The next level down would be the genitive form. Okay, I'm not going to write them all out, but just so you can understand the chart, I want to make sure you understand it. This is your genitive form. The next one down would be your dative, and then the fourth one would be your accusative. Okay, and then masculine, neuter, and feminine. Now, if you look at that, you go, you don't have, you go, oh goodness, I have to memorize this whole chart. No, not really. What you really need to learn is just this level right here. If you learn these as vocabulary words, you really already know the endings. You're not going to get too tripped up on this when you see this in a text. You're going to recognize that Mia is a feminine form of one. So when you see it in this form, or you see it in this form, for example, if you know Mia is one, you're going to see that and go, see that little iota subscript, and you're going to recognize that from other noun endings. Oh, that's a dative. That iota subscript is always a dative ending. So it shouldn't trip you that alpha sigma is that genitive ending. And the one, think about it logically. These are all singular. If you say, well, where's the feminine or the plural? Where's the plural form? One doesn't have a plural form. It's just singular, which makes sense because it's just one. Now, when you get to the 2 and the 3, and you'll see that in the next charts, I won't write them all out, but I wrote that backwards. The duo, which is 2, right? That's the number 2. And then the tres, number for 3. Now, notice these are going to be plural, no singular forms because it's 2, 3, and 4. It makes a lot of sense there, right? And then the number 4 is tesares. Tesares. So, how do you say 1 in Greek? You say it like this. There is no number. There is no number like this. There is no number like this. They say it with these words. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the chart. And then they give you the genitive, the dative, and the accusative of each one of these and their various genders. But again, you've seen these endings before. They're not new to you. They're first, second. They're a mixture of first, second, and third declension nouns. So basically, you just learned this form of them. Okay, and you'll have numbers 1 through 4. Now, if you say, well, what about 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? Well, if you think back through your vocabulary, you've actually been getting those and learning them in your vocabulary list. If you flip back to any chapter, say chapter 5, look in that vocabulary list at the end of chapter 5, and you're going to find the number 5. Okay, and the thing about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is they are not inflected like 1 through 4. And you might say, well, why is that? Well, the answer is, I don't know. I'm not really sure why that is. But so example, 5 is just going to look like this, pente. And there's no inflection. It's just always going to look like that. And that's the number for 5. Okay, so you've been actually learning your cardinal numbers along the way as you've been going through your chapters. Stevens gives you one every time. So if you want to know what's the number for what's the word for 6 or 7 or 8, flip back to that corresponding chapter, look at the vocabulary, and you'll see it there. Now, here's the next thing you need to know. Flip the page to 158. So now you know how to say 1 through 9. How do you say some of the other cardinal numbers? For example, how do you say 10? Well, he's going to give them to you there. 10 is the word deca. So if I just see deca, or just write deca, I've just written 10 in Greek. There's also a word for 20, and he gives that to you there. That is ekasi. Ekasi. There's a word for 100. Ekaton. And there's a word for 1,000. And he's giving you all of these in that on that page there on page 158. So this is your word for 10. This is your word for 20. This is your word for 100. And this is your word for 1,000. That would be, I haven't said these in a long time. Xi, li, and then you got a diphthong there, so it's oi. So notice how I pronounced the sort of the syllables. That ski, li, sky, ski, li, oi, ski, li, oi, ski, li, oi. And ekaton and ekosi is 20. Okay, so those are your numbers for 10, 20, 30, and I'm sorry, 10, 20, 100, and 1,000. He also gives you the number, forgot at the very bottom there, for 10,000, muri oi. Did I write that right? Muri, for 10,000, yeah, muri oi. Now there's another word, once you get past the 10,000, they didn't really have cardinal numbers past the 10,000. So they had a catch-all when you get up there into much, much larger numbers than that. They had a catch-all word, and you see that one here is murias. And murias, we can almost hear our English word myriad from it, and it's just when you get over 10,000 and you get 100,000 and 500,000, things like that, and in these much, much bigger numbers, myriads becomes the word that the Greeks, they had no cardinal interval past 10,000 units. So these are your 10,000, 1,000, 100, 20, and 10. Now, how do we construct numbers? And then this is a catch-all basket for over the 10,000 units. If you're trying to talk 100,000s or a million or anything like that, they didn't have cardinal numbers that high. So myrias becomes the catch-all basket for all those big numbers. Now, how do they construct numbers? Well, they use, as he says on page 158, they use a number of different combinations of suffixes. So, for example, if I want to say, and this is on the top of page 158, if I want to say 11, I'm just going to give you some examples here so you can kind of follow along. If I want to say 11, there are actually 3 ways to do that. I take the number 10 and I take the number 1 from your cardinal, remember on the bottom of page 158, and I can squeeze them together. Sorry, I'm miswriting that. I can squeeze them together and it could look like this, and that's 11. I could make it a suffix, which I don't know if I see this a lot. That's a pretty rare thing. I'm not sure if I see that a lot, but you could do that. That would be 11. And then another one is you could do N and with a chi in the middle, deca. And anytime you get a chi connecting these two cardinal numbers, that's an 11. So there are 3 ways to construct it, and this is what he gives you at the top of page 158 there. You get the prefix, the suffix, or the 2 cardinals connected with a chi. And that's how you make, that's how you formulate numbers larger than just those single ones like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 10, and 20, and 30. Now, if you want to make anything, see if I can help you understand like this. So if I want to say 1 through any number 1 through 10, well, you've got vocabulary words for that, right? So you've got them. It's N, it's duo, it's tres, and so on and so forth, all the way up to 10, which would be deca. Okay, you got a vocabulary for each one of those. What if I want to say 11, any number 11 through 19? Well, what I'm doing is I'm taking the deca to make these numbers, and I'm adding them as I just did there. So I'm taking my cardinal number, and I'm going to use a little plus sign to kind of indicate. So if I want to say anything from 11 through 19, I'm taking my my cardinal number here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm adding it to deca. And you say, well, how do you add it? Well, what I just showed you, as a prefix, as a suffix, or connected with a chi. Now, what about if I want to say 20, say 20 something, say 20 through 29. Well, you have a word for that, right? We just talked about that one, and this is in the middle of page 158 as well. So if I want to say 20 something, I have ikasi. Sorry, that's a diphthong. Ekasi. Now, ekasi, you add to any one of the ordinals, and you'll get 20 to 29. You might follow, and you say, well, how do I add it? Again, same way, prefix, suffix, or with a chi. So if I want to say 21, I'm going to say en ikasi. If I want to say 22, I'm going to say duo ikasi, or duo chi ikasi. And then I would have 22. Now, everything from what they call the 30 to 90 base. 20 has its own unique word. But if I want to say any number from 30 to 90, I'm going to use the 10 interval, which is canta. Canta. And he gives that to you there as well. So anything in the 10 interval is going to be canta. Deca is used for the 11 through 19. That's your teens. Anything 20's got a unique one. Anything in the 10 interval, that's basically anything from 30 to, really, I should say, 99, is going to be the canta suffix. Again, canta with the cardinal in the same way, prefix, suffix, or connected with a chi. So if I wanted to say 30, I would have tres canta, or tres chi canta, and then I would have 33. Okay, so and then for hundreds or anything in, say, and you have a word for 100, but say you want to say anything from 100 to, I guess technically it would be 999, because when you get to the 1,000, you have a new interval. That would be your suffix. Make sure I spell it right. I haven't spelled these out in a long time. Gotten to a point where in reading Greek, a lot of times I could just see it and know, that's my hundreds there, or that's my tens. I see canta. I think that's my 10 interval. Okay, so this is your hundreds interval. So again, this is your suffix, or this is your word for your 100 interval. So if I wanted to make it 200, I would add the duo to it. If I wanted to make it 300, does he give any examples? Yeah, he does. The dia. Oh, I gave the wrong. Oh, that's 1,000. Sorry. I was thinking 1,000. Sorry, made a mistake. Getting all my numbers mixed up. If I want to make anything in the 1,000, that's what I need to do. So 1,000. I thought that looked wrong when I was looking at it. That would be the 1,000. Anything in the 100 would be that one. Cosio. Cosioi, with a diphthong on the end. So anything 100 to 1 to in a 100 interval to 999, I'm going to add this suffix. Now, if I just wanted to say 100, remember you had a separate word for just 100, the ekaton. So, but if I want to say 101, 102, all the way up to 999, I'm going to have this suffix. So not only do you have to sort of learn the cardinal numbers and the number for 100, ekaton, but I got to know the suffix for it as well. And for 1,000, I learned this number and this suffix to make anything 1,000 or over. So, for example, he gives you a few examples there. So, if I wanted to say make let's say if I want to make 200, what I would do is just simply, I'll do it in red here so you can see it. I would have to add the dia to it, or the tres, 300. I would add the tres to it. So I'm adding the 3 to make it 300. And again, you could do this as a prefix, a suffix, or as with a chi in the middle. So you have all three options for making numbers. So what you're basically learning are these these suffix patterns. I'm calling them suffix, but they're interval numbers is what they really are, is what they're usually called, interval numbers. And I'm adding them to my cardinal numbers to make those higher, the tens intervals, the 100 intervals, and the 1,000 intervals. That's basically the number system, okay? That's the cardinal number system. Now, if you're saying, boy, that seems confusing, there's a lot to learn there. Stevens gives a nice paragraph at the very bottom of page 158. In that last paragraph before ordinal numbers, it says, here's what you absolutely have to know about cardinal numbers. You learn the cardinals as vocabulary words, and he gives them to you. Learn 1 through 10 as vocabulary words. You learn the 20, learn the 100, learn the 1,000, and the 10,000. Then you also want to know those suffixes, okay? Those interval suffixes that help you make the tens, the tens, the 20s, the hundreds, the thousand, and the thousands there. Those intervals that are going to help you make those. And he gives them to you in that last paragraph. And then also learn the vocabulary word for myriads. Okay. Now, the only other two types of numbers are what we call ordinal numbers, which are ordering numbers, and adverbials, and we have these in English as well. So, and these are just vocabulary as well. You learn them as vocabulary, recognizing that ordinal numbers are going to be like adjectives, so they're gonna inflect too. But if you learn the vocabulary word, learn it as a vocabulary word, 9 times out of 10 you're going to spot it. Even though that ending might change, you're going to know the ending because it's going to be first, second, or third declension. So ordinal numbers, as he says on page 158. Ordinals are ordering numbers like first, second, third, and the only ones that occur with any significant frequency is going to give you are first, second, and third, and he gets them in parentheses there. Protas, deuteros, and tritas, and those, just learn those 3 as vocabulary words, and you've got them, okay? And just know that sometimes the ending, well, not sometimes, depending on whether it's nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative, the ending will change, okay? That's all that is, but you learn those 3 as vocabulary words. And then finally, adverbials. These are cardinal numbers that were transformed into adverbs so that they can modify verbs. So you get once, twice, and he makes the point there that we used to have an old archaic thrice that we don't use, but now what we do in English is we say 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Well, in there are 3 adverbials in Greek, and he gives them down there in the bottom that are used with any sense of frequency. And these are the 3 that you want to learn, and they would be. Let me erase this up here real quick, and you see them on page 159, and you learn these as vocabulary words. These would be once, twice, and we would translate it 3 times. That's once. There's twice, and tres. There's 3 times. Thrice, 3 times. So once, twice, and 3 times. And again, you learn those as vocabulary words. Because they're adverbial, they don't have inflection like the ordinal numbers do, like those 3 ordinal numbers. So, and that's it. So if you, before I close the video out, if you flip the page to 172, you're going to have these words, except for the 2 through 9 ordinal numbers, 2 through 10 ordinal numbers. You're going to have these words actually listed out for you there in the vocabulary list. So look at that left-hand column, look toward the bottom, and you'll see 1, es, mia, n, that 4th one up from the bottom, left-hand column. And then you'll see 20, you'll see the 100 number, ekaton, you'll see the 1,000 number, the 10,000 number, mori oi, and then myriads, that catch-all basket vocabulary word. Then you get the intervals, the 10, the 100, the 1,000 interval. Then you get the second, third, and then once, twice, and 3 times, okay? So that's the list that you need to memorize. So numbers, you just got to know 2 things. Know that vocabulary list, and then know how numbers are constructed using those intervals as suffix 3 ways. You could take those ordinals, put it as a prefix. You could put it as a suffix after the interval, or you can connect them with chi. I think he gives one example. Let me do this right before I close out the video, just so you can see some larger numbers and to kind of give you an example here. If you on page 158, he gives you a few of these. So for example, if you're going to do some of these larger numbers, see if I can get this whole thing up here. Where's my place, my eye here? I didn't do all the accents, but for the sake of time. This is from John 21:21. So if you were to say, okay, notice what they do here. You've got the You've got the ekaton, which is the number for 100. Then I've got the pente, which is 5. I've got my kanta, which is my 10 interval. Remember, they could have put a chi here. They could have flipped these around. There's 3 ways they can do that. But that's I'll do it like this, my plus 10 interval. Since it's connected to the 5, what do I really have here? I have 50. I have 50. Since, let me erase that, getting in the way here. Trying to do it in different colors so you can see it. What I really have here is 5 and 10 interval, which is another way of saying 50. And you could have flipped these around, or you could have put a chi there. And then I've got the numeral for 3. So if you put this together, I've got 153. That's the number for 153. And that comes from John 21:11, 153. So now, again, you know your vocabulary words. If you know how numbers are formed, you got the entire Greek number system.